Hey travelers, this is Kelly from realworldtravelers.com, and before we get started with this video, I just want to remind you to check out our other daily Malaysia vlogs as well as our other videos traveling around Asia. I will link those in the upper right hand corner and put them in the description below. Let's get started. After having traveled to Malaysia, we thought that it would be helpful to share some things that we learned from our trip. These are just a few tips that we wished other people had given us in advance and some things that we found out by ourselves. So here are 10 do's and don'ts to help make your trip to Malaysia just a little bit easier. Do. Use Uber to get around Malaysia, especially Penang and Malacca. We're not afraid to admit this, but we were pretty late to the Uber game. We had never really used Uber before because we never really felt like we had to. Other countries that we visited had great transportation, and when we lived in the States, we always had a car. But if you're like us and you've never used Uber, Malaysia is the perfect place to start. Even though Kuala Lumpur has a fairly efficient bus and railway system, there are still plenty of parts that are easier accessed by Uber. Once we got outside of KL, Uber became our preferred way of travel, and it really is a thing of beauty in Malaysia. There are plenty of friendly drivers with clean and safe vehicles to help you get around the different cities, and the service always was top notch. The best part is that it is so affordable. Uber even sent us a few promo codes during our trip, which made the already affordable trips dirt cheap. The only caution that we have with Uber is that you do need a reliable Wi-Fi connection to either contact your driver or even request a ride. If you're like us and you find yourselves in the outskirts of Penang, you might just be out of luck and have to find yourself a taxi. Which brings us to our first don't. Don't use taxis. Our first taxi experience was out of sheer desperation because we didn't have any Wi-Fi signal and we couldn't call an Uber. When we got to the Malacca airport, we went straight to the taxi service desk because we were hoping that they would help us find a good deal on a taxi. But we were wrong. We still paid nearly triple the expected rate that Uber would have charged us. We felt like they took advantage of us, and during another taxi ride that we took, we felt like the driver made us feel guilty for trying to haggle for a lower price. A lot of guidebooks had recommended taking taxis in places outside of KL, so you can't really blame us for trying that out. It is a bit petty to complain about drivers overcharging us because what we paid is still significantly less than what we would pay in a Western country. A difference of $1 or $2 wasn't a big deal at first, but once we realized what we could be paying with Uber, we started to feel a little bit differently. With the vast network of experienced Uber drivers all throughout Malaysia, there is really no need to use taxis except for out of sheer desperation. Do visit a mosque. Visiting a mosque can be a very eye-opening experience for many people. If you've never visited one, Malaysia is the perfect place to start. There are mosques in all the major cities, and many of them allow visitors at specific times. Islam is the religion of more than 60% of Malaysians, so it's helpful to understand their faith to fully appreciate this wonderful country. The National Mosque in KL is extremely foreigner-friendly and has guides to help answer any questions related to the mosque or Islam. They also provide coverings for women who don't meet their dress code. It was my first time visiting a mosque and ended up being one of the most memorable highlights of our entire trip. After having visited the National Mosque, I feel I have a better understanding of Islam and highly recommend others who've never visited one to give it a try. Knowledge and understanding help dissolve the mystery and uncertainty that can sometimes shroud Islam. Don't forget proper attire or coverings at different religious sites. This one may seem like a no-brainer, but we still think it's important to include. With Malaysia accommodating a wide variety of different religions from Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and a few others, there are bound to be a few religious sites on your itinerary. It's helpful to remember a few dress codes when visiting the various religious sites. Let's start with Islamic sites. Women should dress modestly and cover their heads. The National Mosque in KL provides coverings for foreign female visitors, so don't worry if you don't have something in advance. Additionally, all who enter the mosque will need to remove their shoes and store them in a nearby shoe rack. Hindu sites. Women should dress modestly, covering their legs and shoulders. The dress code for men varies, but some sites may ask men to wear a traditional cloth to cover pants. Additionally, all who enter a Hindu temple may need to remove their shoes and store them outside. This isn't necessary for visiting Batu caves, but the few temples inside the cave may ask you to remove your shoes. Buddhist sites. Dress code varies depending on the site. Some places we visited didn't ask us to do anything, while others asked men to remove any hats or other head coverings. As a general rule, women should also dress modestly, covering their legs and shoulders. Sikh sites. All who visit will need to cover their head and remove their shoes to enter a Sikh place of worship. The Sikh temple we visited provided us with a bandana to cover our head and a place to store our shoes during our visit. Try Durian. Perhaps the best place in the entire world to try the king of fruits is in Malaysia. World-renowned for high-quality fruits, you can't visit Malaysia without trying durian. Like most people, we'd seen our fair share of viral YouTube videos of Westerners eating durian and having a terrible experience. Even after having seen these reactions, we were determined to try durian on our trip to Malaysia. We think a lot of people could do a few things differently to improve their overall eating enjoyment. First off, a lot of people you see on YouTube or TV that are eating durian are doing it purely for shock value and really aren't necessarily choosing the best kind of durian. They're getting fruit that's out of season and getting fruit from a local Asian market where quality is highly suspect. Second, durian has many different varieties that vary in flavor. Our advice, get the Musang King, otherwise known as the Cat Mountain King. It's called King for a reason because it's repeatedly hailed as the best variety of durian in the world, and we can't dispute that. This was the variety that we ate, and we highly recommend you to do the same. Third, many lovers of durian recommend trying durian flavored things before indulging in the fruit itself. The fruit is quite powerful and packs a flavor that you probably have never tasted before. Being able to try durian in refined desserts allows you to get the flavor of durian, but more subtly and in smaller doses. We did this through a shake and a pudding, and this helped us know a little bit more of what to expect when we took that first bite of durian fruit. We weren't completely blindsided by the flavor, and we cannot recommend this approach enough. Lastly, when you finally decide the time is right to eat durian, do it with an open mind. We really believe that too many people go into the experience believing what others have said or what they've seen on TV. Just remember, many of those videos are over-exaggerated. If you forget about what other people tell you durian will taste like and follow our simple tips, we bet you'll have a much better experience. We're not saying it's going to be your new favorite fruit, but you can help change the negative image that so many people have about this unique fruit. Don't eat at Malacca's Portuguese settlement. Of all the eating experiences we had during our visit to Malaysia, none left us feeling more disappointed than the seafood we ate at the Portuguese settlement in Malacca. The uniqueness that is the Portuguese settlement was the reason that we came. The history of this people group settling in Malacca and maintaining some of the traditions from Portuguese colonial rule was fascinating. How often do you have the opportunity to eat Portuguese food in Malaysia? Many of the commonly known Portuguese restaurants congregate in a strip mall meets outdoor food court setting. Although we had a particular restaurant in mind, we were enticed to eat at a different place because of a cunning saleswoman who literally came out of nowhere to get us in the rain and brought us to her family's restaurant. Starting from that moment, we already had unnerving feelings about our experience. The food was overpriced, the setting was nothing to write home about, and the service was just okay. Even though we were the only customers, there were still a lot of employees sitting around at nearby tables. We'll admit that visiting at 5:30 on a rainy weekday wasn't the prime time to visit the Portuguese settlement, but we'd still have a hard time recommending this place to any traveler just passing through. There are definitely better options closer to city center. Do visit Batu Caves early in the morning.
Batu Caves is one of the most visited sites of Kuala Lumpur and probably in all of Malaysia. It's often extremely crowded and is a bit touristy, but you should still check this place out. Our advice is to visit early in the morning to avoid the crowds and the heat. We took one of the first trains of the day and had the cave almost all to ourselves. And with the steep staircase to the top, we were really glad we tackled it in cooler morning temperatures.
Don't spend your entire trip in one place.
When we say spend your entire trip in one place, we mean staying at the same lodging for the duration of your trip. As we get older, we can understand and appreciate the comforts of having a place to call home while visiting a foreign country. However, we've also seen time and time again that by changing up our accommodations, even if we're in the same city, it's allowed us to get different perspectives of the region that we're staying in. Malaysia in particular is a true testament to this way of traveling. On our visit to Georgetown, Penang, we spent 3 days in the city and changed lodging 3 times. Each night was spent in a different place with a unique and different style than the last. Obviously, this way of traveling isn't for everyone, and there are some major pros to staying put at the same hotel or Airbnb. If you're up to the challenge, we encourage you to try and stay at multiple places during your visit to Malaysia. There are just too many exceptional places to stay at the same place.
Do buy tickets to Petronas Towers in advance.
Visiting Petronas Towers is probably on most people's short list of things to see and do in Kuala Lumpur. But on our visit in August, we saw so many other travelers that were too late to buy tickets and were visibly distraught at missing their chance to see the top. We strongly urge those that really want to experience the amazing views from the top to purchase tickets online in advance. You can buy your tickets the day you plan to visit, but tickets sell out quickly, so you have to buy them first thing in the morning. This still doesn't even guarantee you a ticket and takes away from time you could be spending sightseeing in the city or even sleeping in. One side point to mention about buying tickets online is that you will need to notify your bank or credit card that you are making this purchase. It was a little complicated for us and took 3 attempts, but we were finally able to make the purchase. After you purchase your tickets online, they send you a confirmation email which you use to pick up your actual tickets from the tower box office on the day of your visit.
And lastly, don't worry about the language. If you're traveling to Malaysia and you're worried about not being able to speak the language or communicating with locals, don't worry. At one point in history, Malaysia was ruled by the British, and there's still a really strong influence from those times. It may not be their first language, but you won't have trouble having a simple conversation or asking for help if you need it. Also, most things geared to foreigners are written in English, and the signs are also in English, especially at all of the major sites. We still usually try and learn a few phrases here and there to use on our trips. Even just being able to say hello or thank you really makes a big difference. But don't worry if you only go to Malaysia being able to speak English. Also, keep in mind that our experience is primarily in Peninsular Malaysia or West Malaysia, so if you do travel off the beaten path to other cities, your experience might be different. And there you have it, our list of the do's and don'ts that you need to know when you visit Malaysia. As always, if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe because we put out videos every Tuesday and Friday. Thank you so much for watching and we will see you next time.